I bought a 2003 Fleetwood Excursion as my retirement project, and the dash AC is not working, so I diagnosed it. This is the evaporator. Inside the evaporator is the expansion valve and the high pressure switch. So I needed to get the dash pulled apart in order to find out what was wrong. This is what it looked like once you pull the dash out. Let me show you how I did that. So I just took this piece out of the dash, and there are 4 prongs on the side that you have to release, but then you can pry this piece away from the other piece, and then this has tabs all the way around that you got to work yourself with a screwdriver to pry them out so you can get it out of the dash. There were 4 screws in this that I'm taking out, and then I'm finding that there's some clips here that if you stick screwdrivers in these holes, that you should be able to get this to slide out. So I'm trying to reverse engineer and show how this dash comes apart. We've already talked about taking these 3 parts out, but there's a screw under here. I lift this up. That screw there has to come off. You need to take these screws off so that you can lift this partially up. And once this is out of the way, there are 2 screws down here, one here and one about over here, that hold this down. There's another screw all the way over in this corner, and then these 2 screws underneath that you'll see later in another video. And then you kind of pull this whole front plastic piece off as a single unit. There are 2 screws here and here that come up from the bottom that attach to this plastic piece. I'm not sure where they went to. They may have disappeared. One of the first steps after you get the plastic piece removed from the dash is there are 2 screws that are in this wood piece on the end here. I'm going to remove this out of the way. You have to get back to this screw here and to this screw here, from all the way from behind, crawling your butt inside there. Once you get them off, this piece can come off, which will give you access to a screw that's kind of down here that needs to be removed. To remove the bracket, there's just 3 screws across the bottom, and then that bracket will come out of there. So there was 1 screw here that connected to that bracket over there here. There's a hose comes to here. Then there's 2 hoses over here, and these actually unscrew. This is the piece that you have to unscrew to get out of the hoses. And that's where those hoses are routed to go up there. There's a tiny screw all the way in the bottom down there that seems to have been screwed into somewhere in this area. That's probably behind the carpet. I'm going to just put it in front of the carpet. So there is a screw here under the switches that goes into the metal bracket. And there's a screw all the way down here that goes on an angle into the wood of the wall. So once you get that screw, the screw by the switches, the one down in the corner, then you have to pry across the bottom there all the staples out of this from the carpeting. Once that's all done, you can now finally remove this piece of wood that you can get to the rest of the stuff behind it. The brackets have been removed already. So this is the metal piece by the door. So you have a screw here, then you have a screw here, and then you have a screw here that has to come out. Inside the evaporator is also a temperature sensor, which is these 2 screws here, which runs through this, which goes inside this case, and this wire actually slips in through the fins of the evaporator to check to see what the temperature of the evaporator is. These big fat ones go for the sensors, which are these guys that makes them stay on. These star heads here are for to take the motor apart, and then this black one goes here for this. And there are bolts on the firewall, up here, up here. So this is the evaporator that came off the firewall, and there are screws. There's a screw here, there's a screw here, there's a clip that goes on here, a screw here, 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 two screws here, another screw here, and then one more clip back here. And then this whole unit will separate, and the evaporator is inside. Inside here is the expansion valve and the high pressure switch, which high pressure switch wiring comes out to here. So I got the evaporator out of the components, and there was some critter stuff in there, but it looks like we might be leaking in this lower area. This is the high pressure switch that is also leaking, so I guess it's time to track down some parts. Also, the high pressure switch is a high pressure and a low pressure switch. So I hope this helps you pull your dash apart. You know, when something's 20 years old and it's kind of right before the internet really came out, not too many people were pulling these apart that showed you how to do it, but took me a while, but I got it apart. I'm still trying to work on getting the AC up and running. It hasn't been running for about 10 years. But when you're retired, it really doesn't matter what you do anymore. You know, you just gotta enjoy life and do what you can. Enjoy.